Hello everyone and welcome back. We are now in Module 2, Unit 6, Managing Others' Performance, Managing the Performance of Others. This is a particularly exciting module for me, or unit for me rather, because most of my research falls into this area. I'm really interested in this idea of how do we motivate and develop others, help others move towards goals, overcome obstacles. How do we help others to improve their skills and guide them towards a career? So I'll bring in some of the work that I'm doing as we move through this module. This module will go over some of the ideas from your readings, but this unit, but there will also be some new ideas that aren't necessarily captured within your readings within this lecture. And that's because, again, this is an area where I have a particular interest and a particular expertise, so I'm hoping to give you some of those ideas to think about as well. So here's what we'll do in Unit 6. In Unit 6, we'll talk about understanding performance, we'll talk about managing performance, and we'll talk about coaching, the act of coaching. And coaching in the sense of not executive coaching. I know there's a course on executive coaching within our program that talks about the coaching model and external individuals working with individuals and organizations in order to improve their performance. We're going to be talking about coaching in a much more widely used and general term, which is just the act of a manager really helping to promote and motivate their individuals within the organization. So let's start with talking about one of the most widely used management tools that we have out there. This idea of providing feedback and using conversations around providing feedback and guidance as a way of helping to develop and manage people. I want to start here because I want to really outline some of the challenges that exist within this area, managing people. Feedback, while it is the most widely used form of development, the most widely used tool to help try and motivate people, it is not consistently effective. There is a lot of problems with our ability to deliver feedback and to deliver feedback in a way that's motivational. Most managers aren't really trained in how to deliver good feedback. Often managers shy away from this task and find it either to be onerous or find it to be too emotionally taxing. In fact, when a meta-analysis, which is a statistical review of all of the research that had been done in this area, was this analysis was done almost a couple decades ago now. It was 2 decades ago now. And they found, Kluger and Denisi, the 2 researchers who did this, found that feedback is a bit of a double-edged sword. It improves performance a third of the time. But performance does not change at all a third of the time. And another third of the time, performance actually decreases following feedback. So I tell somebody, here's how you could be doing this better, and here's what we could do to improve your performance. And their performance goes down following that direction. So this really underscores the idea that it is incredibly difficult to manage the performance of others. So let's backtrack a little bit in order to start to talk about, well, what can we do? What are the things that we can do to really try and be effective at this performance management, this management of others? Let's talk about what performance actually is before we get started. Performance is ability, which is a combination of your aptitude, your training, the resources that you have available to you. You saw some of this in the Amabile article. It is also your motivation. So it's your desire and your commitment. So it's your effort, but it's also your persistence towards a given task, right? Knowing that performance is a combination of ability and motivation, we know that in different moments we have different types of guidance or different types of, or individuals that we have working with us have different needs in order to improve their performance. At some points, there might be a need to either improve an ability through training or give somebody more access to resources. If they don't have the aptitude to do a thing in the way that you thought it should be done, well, what way can it be done and how can they do it? Or perhaps are they even the best person for it? But then there's also this idea of motivation. How do I keep my my workforce motivated? How do I do so in a way where when they faced obstacles or when they encounter something difficult, how do I ensure that they will be able to keep moving forward, right? So there have been many suggestions on effective ways of doing this. Amabile, in your readings, Amabile and Kramer talk about small wins, getting out of people's way, really just helping people to accomplish something and make some progress. There's an argument in your readings from Stanford Business about criticism and the role of criticism in being motivational. There's your textbook, of course, and differing views on some of the challenges that these emerging managers have had. But I want to highlight for a moment the reading that you did on strength-based management. So you'll spend some time unpacking this yourself, reading the strength-based approach. This is consistent with some of the research I've done, which is also consistent with the challenge exercise for this module. So I encourage you to open up that activity and to give that a shot. Strength-based management essentially is a response to this long history we've had of giving feedback. The type of feedback that has been largely demotivational, that has caused people to sometimes not change their behavior at all or even decrease their effort following the reception or the receiving of feedback. Strength-based management essentially says, well, are there alternatives? Are there ways of helping people to find and develop their strengths as a way of improving their performance? So I want you to take a close look at that and take a look at the stretch exercise or the challenge exercise to explore this concept in a little bit more detail. But I also want to expose you to some ideas that are really important that you probably have been exposed to in some way or another before. But I want to highlight them here because they are also tools for managing others' performance. You likely learned about goal-setting theory and organizational behavior. And of course, goal-setting theory is very simple. It's outlined here by my very scientific graph, which I hand drew, which simply says that people who set high specific goals perform better than people who set no goals or people who are told to do their best, right? It's a very simple idea. There are some complexities to this, aligning the goal with the type of activity. There's some complex goals versus simple goals. So there are some complexities. But I want to point out something that's related to this that people don't always know, and this is the idea of mindsets. Within goal-setting theory, there's a related theory or connected theory called goal orientation. And here we know that people generally have two mindsets. The first is a performance orientation, where we believe that people are born smart. They have what we call an entity theory about performance and about intelligence. And then there are people who are learning oriented, and these individuals believe that people are made, not born, that you develop skills over time. And these people we also call them incremental theorists. So the first group of people would say that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. The second group of people would say you're never too old to learn, right? So the important thing here is that people with these two mindsets approach problems quite differently. When faced with challenge, someone who has a performance orientation, who believes that it's all about the outcome, it's all about the finish line, if there's an obstacle in their way, they're more likely to give up because they don't believe they necessarily have the skills to overcome the obstacle. Whereas a learning orientation person is up for the challenge and wants to get over that hurdle, right? So it means that when we are setting goals for people, we should be aware of these two different orientations, and we should help people set appropriate goals. Now, the good news is you don't have to worry, you don't have to measure each person in your workforce and figure out who's learning oriented and who's performance oriented. It turns out that you can shift people based on the types of goals that you set. So if you're working with somebody and it looks like you're working on a difficult task where they're going to meet with lots and lots of obstacles, you want to help them set learning goals, to set goals that consider the process. And in this way, you're redefining success by redefining the goal. I'll take this course as an example. Your goal in this course might be to get an A. And that's a performance orientation if you're focused on the A. I want to get an A, I want to get an A, I want to get an A. But to focus on that A, the minute you are given an obstacle, the minute you maybe get a setback and you get a grade that you're not happy with, or that on one of the subparts of the course, or get a grade that's not what you expected, it's likely to be entirely demotivational and may even cause that individual to drop the course and say, well, I can't do it. There's no way to get an A if this is what I'm going to be getting on the first assignment. When in fact, that's not the case. But also, it's the wrong goal to say, I want to get an A. It's much more effective to say, okay, so here, my goal is to do well in this course. How do I do well in this course? Well, I consider the process. I want to start the module the day the module opens. I want to take a look through it and make sure I understand everything that is required so that I can plan my time for the month accordingly. I want to do all of the readings for a given unit. I want to organize it so I finish one unit per week, and then I'll have one extra week to do the quiz and to refine all of my submissions. And I want to do all the readings on a Monday and Tuesday, so I have at least a day or two to think about it before I actually write the reflection paper. All of these things are process goals. When you have a difficult goal, such as getting an A, it's helpful to think about the process and to set appropriate goals around the process. This can be a way of helping to manage the performance of others within your organization as a leader, to help reorient people and help ensure that people are setting the appropriate goals. So, what will help you to manage others' performance? Here's some takeaways from the Amabile article, which I'm a very big fan of, the article around the power of small wins. So setting people up for meaningful work, empowering people, so providing them with the freedom to do the task the way they want to do it, encourage them to do it, and then give them the freedom to do it, rather than this reward punishment idea where you're pushing them along by providing rewards at every stage. Delegation can be very important, so signaling trust, signaling that you believe in somebody, giving somebody confidence to do the task. And then there's this idea from our final reading around criticism. If people need to be pushed hard by criticism, how do you do that? How can you do that in a way that doesn't decrease motivation, that doesn't decrease the effort that they're willing to put into it? Your reading gives you some hints on the types of contexts where that can be successful. And I'll give you another hint. It relates back to our very first module, our very first unit in this module, around building relationships with communication and trust. The idea, if you need to say something difficult to somebody, if you have a relationship that can be used to support that difficult news, it can really go a long way. All right, so that is Unit 6. I again invite you to do the challenge exercise and take part in the discussion that relates to that activity. Take care. See you soon.